So those are our annual, some of our annual fees that are to DNR for our permits, our stormwater permits and our water permits. We have annual fees that we pay to DNR for those things.
It's on that page 6, the last item.
Page 6?
Yes, that short little page.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a one-time annual?
Yeah, every year we pay that, and we'll likely we should have some more, once we're finished up, buttoned up with well number 8, we'll have some fees on it, but
Would you say that again, what it is?
it's just our annual permit fees that we pay, the Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources. We pay those permit fees for water, for sanitation, and for wastewater, those 3 funds.
Why? Why should
Because the state makes us, we don't have a choice in it, Bernie.
It does what?
The state requires it, we don't, I mean, it's not an option. We're permitted from the state to be able to operate a municipal water system, and that's the fees for that. Just no different than when we like drilling our new well number 8. I mean, we have to apply and get permission from the state to do that. They authorize us and issue us a drill welling permit, and of course we have to pay for it just like everybody else.
So it's about $190 a month then?
It's not it's an annual fee. I mean, if you wanted to break it down per month, yeah. And it's based off of population. Is your population is based off of different amounts.
I have a question on page 8, first line. Mowing your well houses, drainage ditches, and water.
That's a line item that, I suppose probably 10 years ago, there was a line item added to the water budget of stormwater. Stormwater falls within the water budget, and those are areas, detention ponds, things like that. Most of these new developments, one of the requirements are that they have detention ponds or holding ponds as part of their stormwater system, and we don't have the equipment or the resources to mow and maintain those, so we've always hired those out. And so just about every month in the summertime, we have you'll see a bill from M&B is who we've been using the last couple of years, and that's for mowing the drainages and those detention ponds.
I know when we did Dolan Creek development, there's a,
That would be one of them that they
That was one.
maintain. Yep. We have a couple, like on Harmon Street, that drainage. We have the drainage up here on 8th Street and Main. That drainage by the old mill there. They go in and weed eat and cut that, and then, like I said, we have several. Davenport Ranch has a detention pond, both the first phase and the second phase, and they mow those, and they mow around our well buildings and our well houses and our storage tanks and anything that needs mowed. Better use of our resources, our water guys out doing water things and doing flushing hydrants and things like that. Plus, we don't really have the equipment for our water guys to mow. I mean, the parks guys have mowers, of course, but they're being used on the ball fields and at the cemetery and the exits and different things.
$1,207, is that a monthly
For
for this?
it's different depending on what they do and how many times, and so some of those drainages aren't necessarily. Some of them get mowed like twice a week or every 2 weeks. Some of them monthly. It just, again, weather is going to determine if we get a lot of rain and it grows. They got to be mowed more often than if not. So it's not a set fee every month. It's going to be different. But all I can tell you is that's for mowing of those drainages and detention ponds.
If you're watching it, if it
Yeah, we stay in contact with Matt, and he'll do some, like if we get thistles and things like that, he'll spray for those as well, so.
Has that drainage ditch ever been used over on Dolan Creek, on the new housing over there?
The detention pond?
That detention
Yeah,
pond?
it holds water.
It holds water, but
It captures water.
So the idea behind a detention pond is that it collects the stormwater, so all of the pipe stormwater goes into there, all of the runoff goes into there, and it slowly meters that down the drainage that runs through Murray Addition, which is the 100-year floodplain. What the requirement is that all of that development they have to capture. They can't release more water than what was normally already running off of that property. So pre-development, that's what they have to design those to, is to hold that water, meter it back so that it's the same amount that was going there pre-development.
thank you.
I'll move on the bill.
Second, all those in favor?
Good morning. So, probably a brief report this month, make Amy happy. Just a little bit of a progress update on Silver Street. The water main is 2/3 in and it is live. The people that were on temporary water the last few weeks are now on the actual water main, new water main that's buried. Excuse me. So progress is going well there. I believe they're starting on the rest of the sewer directly, which as soon as they make the corner, they'll finish the water main. It'll go through all of the same rigor as this first chunk. This first chunk passed both of its back T samples, it passed the pressure test, everything is good, or it wouldn't be in service. So if there are questions, the results for the back Ts are on file. I don't know that Amy scanned them into this website yet, but I do have hard copies also on file. I think we're down to once a quarter. So with that, well 8 is coming along. The building is, oh, go ahead.
What did you say bacterial?
Yeah, bacteria.
We do a testing.
Yes. So the process for that is, the first thing is they hyperchlorinate the pipe, fill it full of water so you kill everything and anything. When that's done, we show up and we assist with flushing. So we meter the water that is flushed, and we have we have test strips and a colorimeter that tests the chlorine levels. So when they sample to have it tested for bacteria, you don't want it super hot because that's in essence cheating. So we make sure that they did achieve the hyperchlorination, which is, I would have to dilute my machine to measure it. So we have test strips. It's a minimum of 100 parts per million on that, okay? So then we flush until we get to our normal system operating level, which right now we're running about a 0.5 part per million to 0.6 part per million of residual chlorine, and they take their sample the first day, whatever Mid-Continent does, the next day. So it's 2 consecutive tests that have to be 24 hours apart. So they have to pass them both. If you fail, fortunately I haven't been around a failure, but then it's a flush. They have to re-inject chlorine, hyperchlorinate. It's a mess if you fail, but contractors are really good at.
And that's a state requirement.
Yes.
That before that those lines can go live and be connected to our system, they have to pass Rapid City or Spearfish, they have these state standardized requirements to do that, so.
Yes. Okay, so moving on then to well 8, it's coming along. The building has tin on it. They're putting the gutters up. The concrete around it is poured. Hopefully by the end of this week or beginning of next week, they have all the asphalt done. As far as the interior, they're still working on there's still, the piping got held up due to some materials that were on back order that haven't showed up yet. You know, a lot of the piping is hung, you know, it's not just sitting on the ground, so you can't, if you don't have the middle piece, you can't connect things, the weight will break things. So they're basically, they should be getting 2 dual check valves. They're like 200-pound pieces of piping. They're not light. So as soon as they come in, they should have the internal piping finished. The well, the pump is set. I mean, there's just so many things I could bounce around. I'll just say we're getting very close to that being done and operational to at least test fire and go from there. So we are still working on the lead service line inventory. We're down to about 300 doors to knock on. We've made progress. I'm really trying to get this knocked out, hopefully before rally. Excuse me. So I can go through during rally, hit the spreadsheet, see where we still need done so we can focus on neighborhoods and try to get a lot more done by our October deadline for resubmittal. That unfortunately eats a lot of our time and efforts. We also I had one guy start flushing hydrants. We did some dead ends. I've been inconsistent on that. Like I say, I'm very focused on trying to get the lead service line done, but we also need to keep flushing hydrants. I'm trying to weigh the two. Where we're at now, I kind of wanted to pause because they were painting curb and gutter about the time we open a hydrant and didn't pay attention to where they were. We've got them, you know, we went backwards on both projects. So I would say here, the week before rally, I can get some more done. And then after rally, we're gonna hit flushing hard. So that's as short and sweet as I can make it, unless you got more questions. You look like you got one, Tom.
No, I'm just trying to understand what you said, pardon my hearing, but are you talking about the lead survey of housing?
Yes.
Okay. But then is there a component of the hydrant line that's actually lead?
No. Your hydrants are a dead end, no matter how you look at them. So anytime you have a dead end in water, there is always going to be a certain amount of live bacteria potential. So we flush those to get fresh water in, and when you see a hydrant that's sat for a while, it'll have a brownish color to it, that stagnant water. It's not bad. It's an iron bacteria that grows, but if left unchecked, it can lead to other bacteria growth that is definitely, none of it's desirable. Discoloration is the least of my concerns, but it would allow other bacteria to grow as well. So you flush them, you get chlorine in, you've got fresh water, you're good to go.
Doing a turnover, you don't want to not have turnover, and it also, that volume of water also helps break loose any scale or things that are on the pipe. It's just a good preventative maintenance practice that you know, we try to do annually. We try and make it through the whole town. We're not always able to, but that's our goal is, and Todd identifies, like I said, where we have long dead end lines. Those are the ones where you want to get enough turnover to get new fresh water. Water will go stale. So we want to get that fresh turnover, that little bit of chlorine and fluoride in there.
So you have a schedule for different lines to do, or you just kind of freelance it?
We do have a schedule, but it gets broke up because if I can't follow it and dedicate 2 people to it, to get it done in a month and in a 6 weeks fashion. I break it up and then we sort out the dead ends, the ones that are the most prominent the most likely to give us issue. And there are, off the top of my head, I want to say about 40 or 50 dead ends that are big enough to warrant needing to go through them.
So the other thing is too, it's not just a matter of opening up the fire hydrant. We have to attach some valving to it, a dechlorinator. Before we put that water into the storm sewer, we're required to dechlorinate it. So again, it's not just a matter of going and opening up the fire hydrants. Another reason we do that, again, is a maintenance, preventive maintenance on fire hydrants, to ensure that the fire hydrant has adequate flow for the fire department if they need it. A lot of times in a lot of towns, we've gone back and forth a couple of different ways over the decades. Sometimes the fire departments do hydrant flushing. Sometimes we do it together. It's kind of a preventative maintenance for both them and for us and our water quality, but also we're doing it for preventative maintenance on the hydrants, make sure they're operating correctly, that they open and shut for the fire department to make sure that they have the required fire flow.
Question. Do you have the people that you need in the department, the water department? Are you?
We're down one operator right now. You know, we're careful on who we hire. I mean, we have they have to have certifications in order to be an operator. Again, they have to have the state licenses, and based on our system and how it operates depends on what class of licensing they have. For us, we would prefer to have people who come to the city with some of those licensing or the ability to get it soon rather than later. I mean, and so there's standards and requirements before you're able to even test for the licensing. No different than a lot of professions. You have to have worked so long and so many hours, for example, in plumbing and in water, before you're able to qualify to even sit for the test. So, you know, sometimes that becomes a pretty great, we have a lot of money involved in people. So again, we're trying to hire the right people. We are short one operator, and we just haven't had any applicants that fit that bill to be able to hire. So it does, you know, that leaves us with two operators, and we've got some, right now our operators have been here for quite a while, so they have quite a bit of vacation built up. They have families where they have kids sick and whatnot. So, you know, there are days where we have no operators on staff. And so when we're at full staff, we have 3 operators. And right now we currently have 2 positions filled. So should one of those, you know, we get the right applicant, we certainly would fill it, and it's a budgeted position. So again, being that water is an enterprise fund, it really doesn't have as much of a consideration as when we talk about jobs and employment within the city. You know, it's probably a little bit different if it's a general fund, because those are funded by you know, property tax, sales tax, but the enterprise funds, the water, is paid by the bill every month that everybody pays. So a little bit different, but your short answer is no, we're not fully staffed in the water.
I don't know if Tom was here for all the web type survey stuff, so not everybody did the survey, so you guys are having to go door to door now to find out what everybody has in their homes.
I know we got a mailing from the city, and
Yeah.
we did it, so we followed the directions at our house.
Yes.
Yeah, there's just a number of people that did not.
Yes, that's a requirement to stay compliant with the ones who bill us to serve you water. Dana, South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. On the fire hydrant flushing, just for more info on that, Tom, and I guess I've never shared it all the way. We have a nice app through our GIS system for hydrant flushing. So as we go through, we put it all on this app on our phones. And so we can track it, and it looks funny because of the GPS on our phones isn't that accurate. There'll be 3 dots in a close proximity to the hydrant, you know, for the last 3 years of flushing. They're all the same hydrant. We've got them labeled. And part of the process I'm trying to go through on that is every year we do get a full flush, pick random areas, well, not necessarily random, select an area that we don't have any fire flow data on and actually get our pitot tube and do a fire flow, and that's on record too, so that as I get phone calls from people wanting to do a development or whatever, you know, it might be January, we're not gonna go do a flow test in January because it's gonna make a mess of the street and whatnot. If I have one on file that's close enough, they can design a building with fire protection based off of that data. And the other portion of this is you can pretty much calculate about a half hour per hydrant to flush. I mean, by the time you hook up your hose, get everything done, and flush it for 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, anywhere from 2 to 10,000 gallons through the meter, you're looking at close to a half hour in, you know, for each hydrant. So
An interesting fact, when I first got involved with water and water became a part of Public Works, we actually did all of our hydrant flushing after hours, and we brought people both from the water department, from the fire department, and we paid them overtime to do hydrant flushing in the evenings. And Todd and I had got together when Todd came to work for the city, and we developed a plan where we're able, we don't do it necessarily as quick as what we used to do, but we do it during normal working hours, thus, I mean, significantly reduce the cost, and we're still accomplishing the same end result. So again, just another efficiency and different way of doing things. So, but that's how we used to do it. We used to pay people after hours overtime to come and do the hydrant flushing, and we would get it done within 2 or 3 weeks, but
it was, yeah.
it was costly.
And then once again, during the day, you would be short operators. I mean, even at times. So when you have an emergency, you might be short somebody. So no. Other than that, any other questions? No, thank you.
I don't have a whole lot to follow up on Todd. He gave a pretty good overview of our projects ongoing. Probably the next thing that we're working on right now is starting to work on 2026 budgets. Working with Aaron and the rest of the team to both help identify our revenues. Again, you know, Enterprise Fund the Water generates revenue that has to be accounted for, and we have to be able to operate within what we're bringing in. So it's a little bit different than a general fund budget, but not really, just different funding. And looking at, you know, as well as our operational budget, what we have for capital improvements. You know, when we talk about capital improvements, we're talking about new projects, new developments, new infrastructure, but also looking at where our dollars are best spent in replacing our current infrastructure or making improvements to it. And you know, the Well 8 project is a good example of the bigger picture that we look at. Yes, we added an additional well to our system, and we needed to do that, but also in doing that, we're making some upgrades to our water system by replacing some altitude valves on our storage tanks and doing some upgrades to the electrical systems on our storage tanks. So we try and get a blended mix of new stuff and looking at what repairs or upgrades we can do. Again, one of the things that we were able to add into that project because of the funding on it, and that was cheap money from the state, was we're gonna be updating our SCADA system. We're able to do that because the new well and the new bells and whistles on that SCADA system don't necessarily talk with our old SCADA system. So we're able to include that in and upgrade it, and our current SCADA system is at end of life anyways. It's operating on a operating system that you're no longer able to upgrade or to do security patches or things like that. So again, when we look at these projects bigger picture and from a higher level, those are the things we're kind of looking for to accomplish, as well as not just always putting in new infrastructure for a subdivision. We're looking at how can we maximize those dollars and replace or upgrade some features that we currently have as well. So that's going to be one of the big things that we're looking at, and probably, operational wise, I feel pretty comfortable. We have a couple of items that we're going to be trying to budget for. Todd needs to have some new locating equipment. Our locating equipment is several decades old now, and just the technology and stuff has changed, but we're talking about a $15,000 purchase as well. Also, we have quite a few computers in the water division to include some of our SCADA computers and servers and Waterman servers that are Windows 10. Windows 10 is end of life this year, so they have to be replaced. We still have the ability to continue to use them, but you lose some of the security features. That's Windows 10 isn't going to be supported any longer, so it's easier for somebody to hack in when you don't have those service patches and those security patches. We certainly don't want people to hack into our water system, into the SCADA system, because if you get into the SCADA system, you can control a lot of our water system from that. Just things that we're thinking about as we move forward with the budget, and again, looking at our revenues and doing some forecasting. And I would say that probably so far this year, we haven't had an extremely hot spring or summer. We had actually quite a bit of rain. So, with that, our revenues trend, we're trying to guess a year in advance on our revenues. Our revenues right now are probably a little bit lower than what we had forecasted, but that can significantly turn around, if we go into a dry spell and people start watering their lawns. And I mean, that's a big generator of funds is everybody watering their lawns, and of course getting billed for it has a huge impact on our ability to receive funds. So those are things that we kind of continue to monitor. We can't control them necessarily, but we certainly monitor them, and that's generally what Ann would be reporting on her part of her finance officer's report. Other thing is, of course, today is shut-off day, so we'll be doing shut-offs. I haven't heard how many we have, but historically they do a good job of getting that whittled down. So that's really all I have to report this month. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think that sounds good, Rick. For me, it does raise the issue of security of our systems. And also, as you say, security of our monitoring of our systems, where we could be hacked. And I'm not aware, through the news, of any communities that have been, has Rapid been hacked, or underwater, or?
We received, the Homeland Security pushed out a security threat here just the other day after, the bombing in Iran, and they did send out, and we received those that, hey, you need to up your game and be monitoring. That's probably, I don't think that the likelihood of the United States being attacked by a missile is probably lower than some sort of a cyber attack or things of that nature. So again, we have a large event that's coming up in the coming months. So that could be devastating if our water or our sewer were tampered with. Could inflict a lot of damage and a cause a lot of sick people very, very quickly. So those are things that we monitor and we work. We have protocols in place. We have to keep them updated. We have security protocols. We have a plan in place on how we deal with things, and we have to keep those updated. And again, some of that's through the state, some of it's through the EPA, South Dakota Rural Water, one of our partners. They help us as well, make sure that we have those plans in place and that, you know, basically all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So Todd does a good job of staying on top of that, and right now we don't have any concerns, but again, just something that we're monitoring and something that we'll have to build into our budget is some of that replacement stuff. So,
You know, just some things to add on the IT side of it, Doc, was, you know, we have a third-party person who manages our IT, our servers, and those type of hardware, software that we use for the city of Sturgis to operate, for at least for the city staff and our elected officials. You know, I just talked to Brett here just last week, you know, and asking some of the same questions about security, particularly as we come up with Windows 10 being sunlighted out this year, and as we bring in new hardware, and particularly looking at it from our server perspective. And at the moment, you know, he says, hey, we're looking pretty good when it comes down to having those things hardened. But, you know, our equipment is coming towards, I'd say, maybe not end of life, but it's on a downhill, coming pretty close. So at some point in the future, we'll have to invest in what that's going to look like. You know, some of the options that we've considered is, do we bring an IT person in and kind of establish our own on-site system like we have right now? Or do we do a third party and have somebody else managing it remotely, and our server would be located somewhere else? There's pros and cons to each one of those options, but that's something that we'll have to take a look at here probably in the near future, just because of our hardware, you know, as it comes towards its end of life. Just going back to one of the questions that you asked, Bernie, in talking about the, you know, number of water people and what the status of there is. You know, we got some challenges there across the city, and that's probably kind of fits right into the water also in terms of having some vacancies. You know, some positions we open them up and we'll have a lot of applications. For example, our HR director, we have 9 applications. Our planning director, we had 1 that was not qualified. We've had some sanitation positions that have been open for a long, long time, and we have not been able to fill them because of some of the certification and requirements for those positions. But the other component is it comes down to just what your wage scale is. You know, back in January, the council approved a compensation study that's been done by Condrey and Associates to be able to look at what our wages are within the city of Sturgis. And that study is coming close to being complete. We'll be socializing that with the department heads. Now, there's probably a cost to this, even just to bring them into that system. Are you familiar with the federal system where you have your 15 grades, your 10 steps from a general scale? A lot of the municipalities have the same thing. You know, Spearfish has 27 steps and they have 27 grades, and they have 18 steps. And that was done by Condrey. We're looking at doing something the same thing and getting our positions, our employees, up to what the market value is for the positions that they have. Again, this is be up to the council to implement this, because there will be a little bit of a cost to it, probably a little over 4%, maybe more when it comes down to implementing that. But the intent is, in implementation, is that we get our positions back up to market value in terms of particularly some of your opening positions. A lot of your entry-level positions are probably well below what the market value is for that position, even starting off. So hopefully that would incentivize people to maybe apply for some of those positions. Yep.
What's the cost of this? You said that there was a cost.
For implementation, are you talking about the cost of the study or the cost of implementing? The study that I think it was like $40,000.
The city paid $40,000 for that?
Yes. And Spearfish and other communities have been doing that for years. We're probably one of the only communities that's not done that study. When I was on city council, we were always trying to do that in-house, and we were always overcome by events and have all the information. But you know, this Condrey has been doing this for a lot of different communities. Spearfish does it about every 5 years just to make sure that they are at market value for their positions. Basically, our employees get into a position, they get started, and they basically get a COLA or they don't get a COLA. They don't ever go into different steps. So they never, the only time they'll get a pay increase is when they have a COLA. So when you look at our employees across some of the other communities, they compared us to 15 other communities and to be able to come up with what the rate would be for those positions. And we, you know, again, our entry-level positions are relatively low. Even at people in the positions for a long time are probably going to be at a step maybe on the bottom half of those 18 grades. If they'd been there for 18, 20 some years, they'd probably be on the upper half. So at the end of the day, it's trying to take care of the employees that we have to make sure that they are being paid at the market value that they deserve to be paid for. And hopefully we can implement that and we can start filling those positions that we've had some difficulties getting filled. Now, that was a budget line item. That's why we held off on HR to pay for that study. We held off for the first 6 months in our HR department. So we are now going to be doing interviews. We'll get the HR department filled, but the cost to pay for that study, which in my mind was imperative that we do that for the employees that we have here in town. Because again, we've been talking about it for years and never been able to do anything about it.
The other part of that too, in addition to the wage study, was developing and writing and ensuring that each employee was in the right job description for what they were doing. And that's probably just as important for both the employees that are here and trying to hire new employees, making sure they fully understand what their job is. And we were kind of all over the place on those as well. So
yeah, it gets a standard position description, just like the federal government has when we hire. Now, we can make adjustments to it based on the nuances of that job. At least we have a standard one to start from. So I'm excited about it. I think it's a good thing going forward.
16 years I've worked here, we've never done this, and I think we're one of the only communities that's never done some sort of wage and job description. I mean, Condrey is the same company that the county uses as well. The Meade County just went through it. City of Spearfish, City of Belfouche, Box Elder. So again, those are the communities, those are the agencies that we compete against for employees. So we want to ensure that we're competing against them, right?
Thank you.
Can I come back to
That's part of the job description, and that's why it's important to have an accurate job description. And you know, typically when we post those jobs, both wastewater and water require certifications, licensing. They're different, and again, based on your system and how it operates. I mean, you can have class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, and they're different licensing, and generally you have both collection and distribution or treatment. You know, like for wastewater, you have a collection side, you have a treatment side. Water, you have treatment and distribution. They're different certificates based on what you do. And for example, we've always been a class 2 when we had our ponds out there. We were a class 2, and by building the new wastewater treatment now, originally we went up to a class 4 licensing, and we've got that talked them down to a class 3. But again, a different licensing, different requirements to be able to sit for those tests. But yeah, it's very, very important. And each person, you have to have that redundancy, because Todd's not always there, or this operator isn't there. A lot of things that we do happen after hours or might be emergency. Again, that's why that individual person has to be licensed, is because sometimes, in a lot of cases, they could be the only person who's on or who is dealing with that problem at the time. And again, when we're talking about treating water, adjusting fluoride levels and chlorine levels, and again, back to kind of some of the back T samples. I mean, you'll get a back T hit, a positive sample, I mean, just simply from handling pipes. I mean, that will give you a hit on back T. So it's very important that drinking water is kept safe and clean, and we can even get a hit when we do our sampling out of the faucet if we handle it improperly and we touch it with our skin as we're screwing I mean, you'll get a positive sample. So again, knowing all these things and how to do it are important, and that's why they require for that certification is because you have to prove that you can, number one, you understand the math, you understand the principles and policies behind what all we're doing. And those typically, those job descriptions, those job positions, they're in a different category than, say, a street operator. They get paid more because of that, because of those certifications. No different than, a street or an equipment operator's got to have a CDL. Not everybody has a CDL, but that's a requirement for those positions as well. So we have a lot of certifications. The parks guys, even some of the water guys, I mean, we have them get certified as a applicator for pesticides. Different licenses. It's a different license required to spray weeds on the street is what it's takes to spray down by Lions Club Pond or along the creek or at the wastewater plant. You have to have a different license because of the water and the aquatics, and so there's a lot of licensing involved in a lot of what Public Works does. So, but again, usually the job description and the pay is reflective of that. And when we advertise those positions, those are required. Hey, it's a requirement that you have a CDL and you have a class 1, distribution license and a class 2, or have the ability to get it within 6 months, because we do have a lot of people that will maybe come from out of state and maybe they have a similar license in Wyoming or Montana or wherever, and there is a process in place to get reciprocity and get that transferred over to the state. So.
It certainly seems like quite an opportunity for quality of training and licensing and to be part of the team and the emerging issues of IT and, as you say, Rick, handling things to get, this is something I think that could be promoted to the public so they understand the value and what a great team effort's involved in managing the city.
There's a lot of, one of the other things is once you get these certifications, there's continuing education requirements too. So, no different, Todd, myself, all the operators, I mean, we have continuing education requirements where we have to hit so many contact hours, so many school hours, PDHs, to keep that license and keep it renewed. It's not just a one and done. You get the license and you're good to go. There's ongoing training and we try to accomplish that with we don't send people to New York all the time for training and we try to accomplish that, local, would take advantage of if they have training in Spearfish or Rapid City. Sometimes we have to go to Pierce, sometimes we have to go to the eastern part of the state, but again, we do have to have so much, professional development hours, so. Good point, thanks for bringing it up.
I mean, is there an opportunity to, as you can promote, Tom, and maybe just a little bit of an education on what the structure of the city looks like, based on different departments and the breakup of those departments and the qualification requirements for those positions? You know, as I talk to people in town, you know, we would, in terms of wanting a good job, I said, if you can find a job at the municipality, I mean, it's a great job to have. You got great teammates, you're helping other people, you're servicing your community, and a lot of those jobs do require some kind of, you know, if not education, certifications and experience to be able to do that. Maybe that education will kind of help everybody have a better understanding, maybe appreciation, you know, of the city staff as they serve them here in the community of Sturgis.